Often when modeling in CAD, the biggest challenge is getting a good grasp of the basis of the geometry. There's usually more than one way to do something, but one of those ways will be vastly simpler than any of the others and produce the same results in the end. For example, this coffee pot. Start in the part workbench. Create a cylinder 50 mm in radius and 200 mm in height. It might be tempting to create a tube instead, but we're going to be needing to cut things out from the center anyway, so just use a cylinder. That just leaves the spout. Looking at the spout, it might be tempting to try to precisely model it using multiple profiles in a loft, or even resorting to the curved shapes workbench. That's making it a lot harder than it needs to be. Instead, I'm just going to model the shape of the top and extrude it down at an angle to produce what we want. Select the top of the cylinder and create a sketch. I want to attach it in inertia 2-3 mode. It offers plane face, and because of the placement of the cylinder, that would have had the same end result, but since I want the origin of the sketch to be on the vertical axis of the cylinder, I prefer to specify the mapping precisely for that. Bring in the diameter of the cylinder as external geometry. We're sketching the inside edge of the spout rather than the outside. That way, when we make a 2D offset, it will go into the pot and fuse properly. Create an arc centered on the origin and fixed to the external geometry. Draw the arc between the first and fourth quadrants of the sketch. To make it easier to specify the size, create a construction line between the endpoints of the arc. Dimension the construction line to 30 mm, the size of the opening. Although it's not showing them the way I might expect, it's apparently added the necessary auto constraints to make us symmetrical with the x-axis. The hint to look for is that the line turned green, showing fully constrained. Select the polyline tool and draw a triangular shape of the spout attached to the ends of the arc. The endpoint of the triangle did not end up fixed to the x-axis, so I'll set a point-on-line constraint now to fix that. But I don't want the spout to be too pointy at the end. For one, that tends to make for turbulent flow of the coffee and make a mess. And two, there's no need for a sharp pointy thing to cut yourself on in the morning when you're still clumsy because you haven't had your coffee. So select the fillet tool and round the point. Dimension that arc to 1.5 mm. Now we just need to constrain it down to get the correct length of the opening. An easy way to do that is just drop a point connected to the arc. I'll use point-on-line to connect it also to the x-axis. Be sure to make that point construction geometry. In older versions of FreeCAD, it defaulted to construction geometry, but that changed with the release of 1.0. If it's left as regular geometry, the Extrude tool will get confused and complain about wire not closed. Create a horizontal length constraint between the point and the base of the spout. I want the spout to be a total of 40 mm. The sketch will have a 1 mm 2D offset applied to it, so the horizontal distance should be 39 mm. Close the sketch. So far, so good. Now select the sketch and create a 2D offset. Keep the default of 1 mm and tell it to fill the offset. This is the top of our coffee spout. If the offset is extruded along its normal, we'll get a funny shaped tunnel on the side of the pot. It would be awkward to manually select the vector using X, Y, and Z. I need a reference line. So create another sketch on the XZ plane. Set view cross-section so we can see it clearly. Create a line from the origin extending upward beyond the edge of the pot. Set an angle constraint of 30 degrees between the line and the y-axis. Make sure that the line will be protruding from the side of the coffee pot so it'll be easy to select. The exact length doesn't matter, it's just a reference. Close the sketch. Select the offset and extrude. In the along direction option, click Select. Select the reference line we just made. Check reverse because otherwise it's going to extrude above the top of the pot. I don't know the exact length we're going to need, and it's not worth it to calculate it. So start with a wild guess of 50 millimeters, which is probably wrong. As you can see, we have not reached all the way to the bottom. So select the extrude and in the data pane set the length to 70 millimeters. Having a look at it, we're almost there, but there's still that tiny little bit at the bottom. So increase it to 80 millimeters. That's done it. Now that I can see it, it looks just a little bit pointier than I was hoping for. So open up the extrude and the offset and edit the sketch. Increase the radius constraint on the arc to 3 millimeters. That looks more like I wanted. But a solid cylinder makes a terrible coffee pot, so I'm going to need to hollow it out. Select the top of the cylinder and create a sub-object shape binder. In the data pane, set the offset of the shape binder to -1 millimeters. Select the binder and extrude. Again, check the reverse direction so that it extrudes into the coffee pot, not above it. There's no way to enter a formula into the extrude dialog, so for now just accept the default of 10 millimeters. Select the extrude and in the data pane, length forward, set the formula to cylinder.height -1 millimeter. Now select the cylinder and the extrude and cut. That's hollowed out the cylinder, and now we can see the funky shaped extrude from the spout penetrating into the pot. Rename the extrude to spout just so we can keep track of things. Open up the cut, select the spout and the extrude, and cut again. That's looking a lot closer now, but we still have the conspicuous problem that there's no way for the coffee to get out. I'd really like to just remove these two faces that are visible inside the spout between it and the volume of the coffee pot, but there's no way to select them. Those faces are actually the face of the hollowed out cylinder, and no distinction is made between inside the spout and outside. So select the cut for the coffee pot itself and the cut for the spout and fuse. It was always going to be fused, so it might as well be now. Now the two faces inside the spout are seen as distinct from the face of the pot. Select those two faces and create a sub-object shape binder. Select the binder and extrude. It's a bit confused as to what the normal might be, probably because those faces are curved. So explicitly tell it to extrude in the X direction. The default 10 millimeters is fine. There's our extrusion, but it went the wrong direction. So select the extrusion and set reverse to true in the data pane. Much better. Select the fusion, select the extrude, and cut. And there's our coffee pot. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video or found it useful, please like, subscribe, and share. If there's anything you'd like to see covered here, please let me know in the comments below.